Her frazzled mum completely lost it and battered her.
Well, that's absolutely absurd. I mean,
I don't know that she wet her bed much. I don't even remember that.
well, she had accidents, but children do. It is so minuscule in the big. Does someone actually think I would kill my child because she wet the bed? I mean, I have lived through stage 4 cancer. In the grand scheme of things, bedwetting is not important.
From our studios in New York.
So, before we get started, we have a few people to say hello to and thank you to. First off, we want to start by saying thank you to Marsha Pop 2 times over, 199, big 199. For those who liked it, thank you so much. Appreciate you for the support and supporting this video. Several times over, we have Eve of West, 999, 999, and 1999. Big Eve, you know what it is, man. Come on, I appreciate you. And then coming out of nowhere. What? Granny Rose 4525 with $100 is just crazy. That is crazy, man. That's wild. Y'all love me or something? Y'all love me or something? I appreciate you all. I thank you once again to everybody who contributed. Much appreciated. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. I love it. Truly appreciate it. I want to dive into something that has been kind of highlighted here, and that's the discussion of Dr. Beuf. Dr. Beuf in our last, well, I'll just say this. Let me do my intro. In our last episode, we examined the role of Mike Bynum, who was the man who placed himself at the center of the Ramsey defense strategy just hours after JonBenet's body was found. And we broke down how he advised the Ramseys to retain legal counsel, blocked early police interviews, and really started to work and help shape public perception of the case, going on multiple interviews to kind of put forth a narrative to help the Ramseys. No, no problem. You're doing what you're doing. All while claiming to want nothing more to do with the case. He stayed involved with the case. So in this episode, we're going to shift from the legal maneuvering to the medical oversight, focusing on Dr. Francesco Beuf, otherwise known as Check, JonBenet's longtime pediatrician, and what her medical records or the medical information that we have, along with her mother's own words, reveal about her recurring illnesses. We might do that in part 2. JonBenet was frequently sick, and we're talking about multiple visits each year for sinus infections, earaches, private area irritations, and things like abdominal pain. So on paper, it looks like we have a chronically sick child. But what I want to break down and get into and kind of talk about is, what does this really mean? Was JonBenet really just chronically sick, or were these other symptoms or these things kind of indications of other stuff going on in the house? Dr. Beuf. This is Dr. And you may have seen him if you watched the Netflix documentary. You may have seen Dr. Beuf. He was on there kind of talking a little bit as well. Is this the one? Oh, that's his dad's book. Okay. So this is probably the picture that you're most familiar with from Dr. Beuf. If you're interested, or if you're wondering, if you're not familiar, this is Dr. Beuf. Now, just a little bit of background on Dr. Beuf. Dr. Francesco Beuf, kind of a nice guy, you know. Dr. Francesco Beuf died with his family around him on May 11th, and this is May 16th of 2017. On May 11th at Boulder Community Hospital, 2 days before his 84th birthday. Dr. Beuf was raised with his family on a ranch in Wyoming. He received a degree in mechanical engineering from Caltech, and then he worked for 1 year at Bell Telephone Laboratories in Murray Hill, New Jersey. He then accepted an offer by General Electric's new missile and space division in Philadelphia, where he was involved in designing missiles, satellites, Mars exploration probes, and he became a manager of the space division's international operations. In 1972, he took a leave of absence from GE to attend Temple University's School of Medicine, and at the time he was 40 years old. And so basically he lived a full life during that time. So, and then kind of switched careers. His internship and residency followed at the University of Pennsylvania Children's Hospital for the next 2 years. He was director of the intensive care nursery at Bynum Hospital. He then returned to his hometown in Wyoming, where he practiced general pediatrics, served as chief of staff at the Sheridan County Memorial Hospital, and was appointed governor to the Wyoming Certificate of Need Board and Early Intervention Council. In 1990, Dr. Beuf moved to Boulder, admitting patients to Boulder Community Hospital. In addition to his general pediatric work, Dr. Beuf loved teaching students at the CU Medical School, where he was a clinical professor. I think he was actually voluntary. He was a voluntary professor of clinical research, and he won an award, I think, for a career teaching award in 2006 from CU Boulder, alongside several of his other colleagues for that. He focused on fields of asthma, allergy, and neonatology. He was board certified in pediatrics and a fellow of the American Academy of Pediatrics, a member of the Colorado and Boulder County Medical Societies, was awarded the American Medical Association's Physician Recognition Award with commendation for self-directed learning, and the CU Medical School Career Teacher Scholars Award, which I just mentioned. He volunteered his services to Doctors Without Borders. His articles have appeared in national journals in the field of medicine, Interplanetary Exploration, and Sports Car Magazine. Doc, as he was known to his family, lived life with an adventurous spirit. He owned and flew a plane as a teenager, using a horse pasture on his family's ranch as the landing strip. And as a young man, he bicycled across Europe and climbed the Matterhorn. He was an avid sports car enthusiast who enjoyed racing. In 1960, he enjoyed racing his 1966 AC Shelby Cobra. He recently lost his wife of I think it was 20-something odd years, Penny Pearson Beuf, and he is survived by his daughter, Helen, sons Carlo, Peter, and grandchildren Max, Tess, Olivia, Elizabeth, and Caroline. In lieu of flowers, contributions can be made to the charities that he was a part of, and I think those are actually charities that his wife did. I think so. I think those are charities that his wife did, because she died before him. I think she died in 2014. She died in 2014. Yeah, interesting thing, and I'm just doing a little history here. Interesting thing is, his dad's name was Carlo, is what it was. And you know, he's Italian, and he has a very interesting story. Dr. Beuf, he has good ratings. People love him. People from Sheridan, people from Colorado, They say for a long time, he's been an advocate of children. And so people just absolutely love him. He doesn't have any smut on his rep, which is to say that he's clean. I mean, people seem to like him as a doctor. But his dad was something. I think his mom was a housewife of sorts. I want to say his mom wasn't even supposed to live past like 20 or something. She wasn't supposed to have a long life at all. And I could be off on the 20, but she had a condition. She wasn't supposed to have a long life at all. And I guess it would be helpful. So, and I'm not going to read it, but this information is out there on the internet. This is his wife who died before him. She died in 2014 before him. And the thing about her was she was in a couple of TV shows and stuff like that. I think Dallas. She was in Dallas. In the Dallas series. I think that's a soap opera. She was in that. I've seen that a few times. And so Dr. Beuf has some sort of connection to this world of people who are in the upper echelon of things, so to speak. Penny has probably introduced him to her Hollywood friends, and he has people that he knows from his time at GE and his career before being a pediatrician, and then now he's a pediatrician, and he's a really good one, and so he knows people from that space. So kind of a similar vibe, to be honest with you, from what to what the Ramseys were building. Kind of higher income, higher in society in terms of status monetarily. And so it's no surprise that, and he was very open. He would give his phone number out to people. He would check on the kids, or he'd give his phone number out and say, hey, if there's any issues, call me, let me know. He'd be on vacation. And he would allow people to call him on vacation and say, hey, did you get it squared away? If kids were in trouble in any kind of way, or they needed, I think one individual in the reviews said that her child needed to get on some sort of list to see a specialist. And they said, no, man, we can't see him. And then until like months later, and then Dr. Beuf called and said, hey, we need to get this kid in. Can you see him? And then, got him in within the week. So Dr. Beuf is really doing God's work out here. Like I said, he came from a really good family, to be honest with you. His dad was something like a historian. His dad wrote like 2 or 3 books. One was on, I'm going to try not to butcher this. It was like Cesare or something like that. Who was it? Because he's like a Machiavellian prince or something like that. And well, his brother died pretty young. His brother died pretty young. I think his brother was like 34 when he died. It doesn't say what happened. We just know his brother died pretty young. But at any rate, and just, kind of bear with me. I'm doing this little history lesson. Here's Carlo from Sheridan, Wyoming. So you know how he got to Wyoming. Here it goes. This is what I was looking for. He wrote 2 books. Make sure you can see it. He wrote 2 books. Borgia, and then in Machiavellian Prince. I think this was actually 1 book. I think, yeah, this here is 1 book. It's more of a historical book. And then the innocence of Pastor Mueller, which essentially was about, as I read the notes, was essentially about this idea to where this pastor was living in this house with this friend. This friend had this special camera, and this special camera could shoot you to the future or to the past or something like that. And apparently the friend was using it for evil or something like that. But then the pastor got it and wanted to use it for good. I may be flipping the roles, but that's essentially what the camera was doing. And so his dad kind of wrote that. And so the ranch that they're talking about was actually his grandfather's on his mom's side, maternal grandfathers. And so basically, as I pull it up here, this was his maternal grandfather. And so his grandfather seemed like a stand-up guy, was in societies and stuff like that. You was the secretary of the U.S. Treasury under President Jefferson and President Madison. So, he's no stranger on his, and these guys, they're more so from New York on his mom's side. They're from New York on his mom's side. And he became a rancher, and he had and Dr. Beuf was born in 33. And his grandfather here had this ranch, and he fell sick. And then in 1933, I think he had a partner that he was, on the ranch with. He had a partner that he had the ranch with, but then they kind of went their separate ways. They decided to dissolve the relationship. And then that was around the time that Dr. Check was born, and like 33. And then in 44, I think he actually turned it over to Carlo, Dr. Check's dad. And so that's kind of a little bit about where they come from. But let me get back here to the interview. I say all that to say, give you a little bit of background, but his mom comes from a little bit of money. And his dad was doing okay as well. I think all the money came from his mom's side though. So, and then he married Penny. I think Penny was actually married to somebody else before. But then anyways, so he understands money. It could be the case, we talk about money a lot, it could be the case that money could have had a lot to do with the Ramsey case. And we talk about that a lot. The first place I want to start is when we look at this interview, and this is the same interview with Bynum. And so Diane Sawyer says, so what's next? Can a murderer ever be found, since many observers think police let people contaminate the evidence that first day? 8 months later, the Ramsey house is empty. And they got out of there in 8 months. Do you hear me? 8 months. The Ramseys were not planning to stay. They got up out of there in 8 months. They were staying at somebody else's house for 5. They were already planning their exit. But anyways, the only reminder that children once lived there or lived here is a swing set in the backyard. JonBenet Ramsey is a constant presence on TV in these photos and that autopsy report, which will certainly be debated for years. Death, it says, from choking and a blow to the head, an abrasion to her hymen, which is where we're going to go, which was otherwise intact. Some private area bleeding, some bruising. Some experts believe that the assault was staged to confuse police about the motive. Others have speculated something more. As you know, there are people in this country who simply believe that John Ramsey abused his daughter. And so Bynum comes in. He says the family has been investigated. They have been loving and caring parents. All of the medical records, all of the school records, anyone who's ever been around the family has confirmed it. There's no indication. There's no evidence. Diane jumps back in and says, But what about those reports that JonBenet's pediatrician, Dr. Beuf, saw JonBenet 30 times in 3 years? And here's where Dr. Beuf jumps in. He says, before your call, I sat down with her chart and counted it. It was 27 times. Great. I appreciate you doing that. And so I have my notes here. I did want to hone in on that. He chimes in and says JBR has seen him 27 times. On Larry King, that's where the report came from. On Larry King, from what I know, on Larry King with Steve Thomas, the Ramseys said 30. But, if the doctor is sitting down and he's reconfirming 27 in 3 years, then we'll go with 27. When we calculated it at first, let me see. When we ran it out at first, oh, here's my phone. It almost came to like almost once a month that she was going to the doctor. She was going 10 times a year and 0.83. So, but if we say 27 divided by 3, I mean, you still have 0.75. So a little less than once a month. So she was going to the doctor quite frequently, quite honestly. So 3 less visits. I mean, it's still up there. That's interesting to me because personally, I don't, you go to the doctor. For me and my family growing up, you go to the doctor probably like once or twice a year. You get a checkup and that's pretty much it. And this is to indicate what Dr. Beuf is trying to indicate here is that there's really nothing, or what Bynum and then Dr. Beuf in tandem is trying to indicate that there's really nothing going on in terms of the assault with JonBenet. There's really nothing going on here, nothing to see, nothing to worry about. These kids were with loving, good parents. I don't doubt that Patsy and John love their children. But let me ask you a question. Is it possible to love your kids and neglect your kids? Is it possible to love the idea of kids but neglect them in a way? Does that make sense? By the way, shout out to all moms. Happy Mother's Day. I'm doing this the day after Mother's Day. So shout out to moms everywhere. Congratulations to you all for sticking through it and being awesome. Thank you. I appreciate my mom. I called her yesterday. I called my mom yesterday and I sent her a gift. She didn't even mention the gift. She was just, enamored with. So my brother works for the fire station. And so she was there and they were feeding all the moms. And so she was there laughing up a storm, like just dying laughing. And I was like, what are you laughing at? She was like, oh, they're riding on the fire truck. Why is that funny? Well, let me let you go. Your dad needs his phone. Okay, well, happy Mother's Day. Since you're rushing me off the phone, I guess you're too busy to talk to me. But anyways, thank you once again to all the moms. Shout out to all the moms out there. But anyways, where was I? The idea here, and I kind of lost my place. But anyways, the idea here is that there's nothing going on. This is much to do about nothing. So I'll kind of move on there. They're in a love. They love their parents, or the parents are loving, but we're asking if there has been an element of abuse or neglect. And the Ramseys, as they did in their interview with the cops, are frustrated. They become frustrated. The lawyers step in. John seems like he starts to cuss the cops out. You know what I mean? A little bit, Don't talk to me about that. When they asked him about the forensic evidence and, the black fibers, they said, hey, man, you had a black shirt. There were black fibers found in JonBenet's underwear, and John just went off. He flew off the hand. Oh, how dare you ever accuse me? Hold on now, John. Hold on. I'm talking about the forensic evidence that exists. I'm not sure. I don't even know you. I don't even know you. Why would I care to accuse you of something that you didn't do? Who cares? I mean, if we really wanted to accuse you like that, if we really didn't believe you like that, then guess what? We would have called you down from day one. But we gave you the benefit of the doubt because you said that your daughter had been kidnapped, and we gave you that benefit of the doubt. No mention of that. But as soon as we started looking at different things, and there were some reasons, why the cops, when we go through the search warrants and stuff like that, there were some pretty strong reasons why the cops honed in on the Ramseys, period. Very strong reasons why they honed in on the Ramseys. But anyways, these are very loving and caring parents. All the medical records, school records, no indication, no evidence of any assault, but neglect. Let me move on to the next piece. Says, this is the first time Dr. Beuf has gone over his records publicly. And so she says, and is that unusual to see a child that many times? Dr. Beuf says, not with the kinds of problems which this child had. The majority of them were sinus infections and for colds. See. That response. That response sounds extremely similar to what Mike Bynum said. When Diane Sawyer in this very interview asked Mike Bynum earlier, she said, why didn't the Ramseys just go to the police and help the police immediately? Why weren't they on the police's doorstep? And Mike Bynum responded, well, under normal circumstances, they would have, but they couldn't do it in this circumstance. And so my question at the time was, what makes this circumstance different than any other circumstance in which there is a homicide with respect to a child? And now we have Dr. Beuf. We have Dr. Beuf who is kind of saying the same thing. Well, normally you probably wouldn't have kids with these issues, and I probably wouldn't see kids this many times. However, with the problems that this child had, of course, I'm going to see this kid a lot more. So what it seems to indicate to me then is that JonBenet may have been chronically sick in some way that required her to see the doctor quite often. Now, what we can see is that apparently she was getting checked for sinus infections and colds and stuff like that. Because it's like, why was JonBenet getting checked for sinus? And maybe it wasn't. But if we're thinking about in the summertime, if JonBenet was getting checked for colds and things of that nature in the summertime, and probably not in the summertime, because I think they were up in Charlevoix in the summertime. So, but throughout the school year and things of that nature, if you're getting checked for, you know what I mean? If you're getting checked for stuff like that, how are you getting so many sinus infections? Like, what does it take to get a sinus infection? Like, sinus infections come from things that like triggers, blockages, germ growth, infections, I don't know. But anyways, I guess I'm stuck on infections because you have blockages, I have allergies and all such as that. But how many sinus infections can one child get? You know what I mean? Like, after like the third one, I might say, after the third sinus infection, you might be like, well, hold on. What's going on here? My kid should not be getting this many infections. That's just wild. That's crazy. JonBenet kept getting them. According to my notes here, he says, and he goes down, he said the majority of them. She said, but what do you mean by majority? He said probably 20 of the lot. But 20. If we take 20, that's like over a 3-year period. That's like 6, almost 7 sinus infections and colds a year. What's happening? In year 1, when she would have had 6 in the first year, and this is an average, so, if she would, but just based on that, if we take the averages, 6.66 or 6.67, that's why I say it's almost 6.7. You might round it up to 7 if you're looking at whole numbers, but let's just round it down to 6. If you have 6 sinus infections and colds in 1 year, then guess what? The next year, as a parent, especially as a mom who was around JonBenet all the time, going to her school, you volunteer at her school, I would think that I would be talking to Dr. Beuf about coming up with a plan. You know what I mean? I'd be talking to Dr. Beuf about coming up with a real plan to help my daughter not have so many sinus infections and allergies. Maybe it has something to do with the weather in Colorado that she's not, familiar with. I think as a baby, you're bringing her from Atlanta to Colorado, and maybe she just got used to, the Atlanta weather for just a little bit. And then you ship her off to Colorado, and maybe, Colorado is a little bit of a cooler climate, and she's just not, something's going on to where JonBenet is not being taken care of properly would be my theory. Because 6 sinus infections, I can only remember getting colds like when it comes around and it's the wintertime. That's when you have them. Maybe 2 or 3 times, you have 2 or 3 just allergy related stuff. But a sinus infection, I don't think I had many sinus infections. And like I said, I didn't go to the doctor a lot, but my mom and my dad, really my mom, used a lot of, she had the medicine ready. Whatever we needed, she had it ready. Tylenol, milk of magnesia, Vicks, Vapor Rub, whatever. She had it all ready to go. If anything ever happened, she had it ready. So that makes me question Patsy's preparation to be a mom. And I'm not saying Patsy was a bad mom. I'm just saying sometimes you form habits. And if nobody corrects those habits, she was a new mom with Burke. We talk about John not being present because he's traveling all the time. And so and she's in Colorado by herself. Her friends are probably not coming over, helping her with the baby. So it's really just her trying to figure out how to be a mom by herself. And that's my thing. When you're trying to figure out how to be a parent by yourself, you're guessing. I mean, I guess this is right, because I'm battling taking care of a full human being while trying to take care of myself. I know what I like, but I don't know what the kid likes, and I'm learning. And so it's like with the first kid, you make a lot of mistakes. And I would assume that with Burke, they made a lot of mistakes, and they shouldn't have, because John should have known. He had 3 kids, so he should have been well aware, at least picked up some tips and tricks along the way, even if Lucy, or even if Cindy was the primary care person. He should have picked up something about taking care of kids. And so he should have been able to pass that on to Patsy. However, it seems as if problems continued over and Patsy wasn't able to adequately address certain things in motherhood. So you have a child who is constantly sick and getting to the point of getting infections. Man, I tell you what. Said probably 20 times. I counted 3 in which he'd complained of some pain in urination, and the rest of them were cold, strep throats, and sinus infections. Diane Sawyer says there was some concern about asthma because he is an asthma specialist. She said, how many times did you give her an exam, private area exam? Said, well, it was 5 or 6 times in that 3-year period. And I don't know what he's referring to when he says that. But Sawyer says, we asked him specifically to review all of his notes that might pertain. He agreed, citing the frenzy of uninformed speculation. Doc, I think uninformed speculation is the furthest thing from what we should be talking about with you. I'm going to be honest with you. Because what we already know, uninformed speculation, sir, it doesn't get any better. It doesn't. It's actually still bad. If I, as the news media, said something wrong or incorrect, like, say, for example, man, JonBenet had the flu every other month. So 6 months out of the year, she had the flu. And you come back and you say, she didn't have the flu every other month. She had a sinus infection every other month. What? That's not any better. That is not significantly better. She's still sick 6 times out of the year. And that's just with a sinus infection. That's my point. So he goes on, he says there's a lot of speculation going on in the media. There's a lot of uninformed speculation. Be warned, these are doctors' clinical notes about a young patient. September of 93. A call about private area redness. September of 93. JonBenet was almost 4. She was like 3, I think. She was like 3 at this time. She would be 4 in December. She would turn 4 in December, at the end of December. In 93, at the age of 3, September of 93, they are calling in about redness, possibly associated with diarrhea. She's 3. Who's helping her use the restroom? April 1994. A visit about a problem perhaps related to the use of bubble bath, which can be an irritant. October of 94. Just several months later in the same year. Routine physical, no problems. He said, this girl is, she's 4. She's 4. He says no indication. No, he says no problem. She got a routine physical, no problems. Though, save for occasional bedwetting. Dr. Beuf says 20 to 25% of children at the age of 4 wet the bed. They started JonBenet potty training at the age of 2.5. I will allow 4. I will allow the age of 4. Bedwetting at the age of 4. I'll allow it. Instead of being alarmed, Dr. Beuf says, oh, something that 20 to 25% of the kids, a quarter of the girls, something that's kind of normal. In light of redness due to diarrhea, problems with bubble bath, an irritant, bedwetting, ding, 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 ding. Something's going on with this little girl, man. Like, I got to go back up here before I move forward. It just makes me sick to my, it makes me sick to my stomach. She complained about pain in urination 3 times. And he went on and said, and the rest were colds and strep throat and sinus infections. I'm not going to lie, I'm sick to my stomach. This is wild. She complained about this 3 times. What the heck is going on? Pain using the restroom. How? How do you get pain using the restroom? Infections. What? Infections. Why was JonBenet overcome by infections? I don't understand. And it's painful to think about. She's young. She doesn't know what's going on. And this is very similar. JonBenet went through a lot. She also went through a lot in death as well. And it almost seems like JonBenet was never okay. JonBenet was not the happy-go-lucky child that we're being told she was. JonBenet had a lot of problems. Kids are well aware of the problems they have. And kids might ask you stuff like, do you wish you never had me? Or am I too much of a problem, Mom? Or, you know, Mom, since you had me, are you no longer happy? Were you happy, you know, before I was born? Kids will ask you that stuff out of nowhere. They'll catch you off guard with that stuff because they watch your facial expressions. And I know I do not doubt that Patsy loved JonBenet. I do not doubt that Patsy had a connection with JonBenet. I don't doubt that. I don't know if Patsy knew how to take care of JonBenet, let alone Burke. I don't know if Patsy knew how to take care of them. Patsy's living in this big home in Colorado, and she has 2 kids. She has a housekeeper. And I think at one point in time she has a nanny. I don't know why they got rid of the nanny. Why? Patsy clearly needs the nanny. Five or six times in a 3-year period, I think he's referring to the examinations. Now, I don't think the examinations were invasive. According to the interviews, Patsy said, "Nah, it wasn't like a pap smear or anything like that. You know, I think it was just kind of looking on the outside, more so is what it was, kind of looking on the outside. But some of the things that were reported on the autopsy were on the inside, and particularly at the 7 o'clock position. And I might be getting slightly ahead of my notes, but, and I probably need to move on anyway, but if you're telling me, if this indication is that she had 6 exams in a 3-year period, let's 5, it's like 2 a year. 2 a year? Is that normal? Sir. Why is she having 6 a year? Or I'm sorry, why is she having 2? It's essentially like 2 a year. Why is she having 2 exams a year for her private area? That is not, sir. I don't know what else he could have done. I guess he's saying that he was looking, but he didn't see anything. I don't know what else he could have done, but all I'm saying is, my goodness, something has to be wrong. The body is out of whack. Her immune system has to be shot or compromised in some way. If she's getting infections left and right, that would make me stop and say we need a different strategy. We need a different plan of attack is what we need. Man, this just hurts to read. You know, I gotta move on. My stomach hurts. I'm not gonna lie. I had a big look. I had an extensive write-up. Not extensive, but a little bit of a write-up. Or I did mark March of 95. Said March of 95, abdominal pain and fever. Tests and exams showed no problem. If we ask the question, and a 6-year-old in March of 1995, I wanted to, just to put it in better context, this video is marked July 31st of 1995. March 1995, abdominal pain and fever. Tests showed no issue. In a 6-year-old, abdominal pain and fever can be caused by things like appendicitis, urinary tract infection. I think it's constipation, strep throat, which can cause belly pain, some other infections in the genital area, vaginitis to be specific. Maybe some things to do with the stomach, gastroenteritis, gastroenteritis, stomach bug. My eyes are drawn to 2 of those things, and that's strep throat and vaginitis. And I don't have to guess on those because those were confirmed. And we will talk about those a little bit later. But in March of 1995, she has this abdominal pain due to some maybe strep throat or some other private area infection. And this is her in 1995. And I think this is in Michigan because they said they used to go to Michigan in the summers. Because I was looking at the layout of the home and the stairs. JonBenet was coming down the stairs and yeah, this part right here. She was coming down the stairs and I was like, I don't recognize this. I recognize this. I recognize the wallpaper, but she took a left and went down this way. And I was like, not in the Colorado home. You can't do that in the Colorado home. If she would have tried to do that in the Colorado home, she would have took a left and went into a wall because she would have been in the foyer right there. If she would have come down these stairs, she would have been in the foyer. She would have only had an opportunity to turn right. And even if you say the camera may be turned or the whatever you call it, but the camera might be flipped, it might be mirrored. Even still, the banister on the first floor of the home is not the same as it is in Colorado, and then the carpet is not the same as it is in Colorado home. So that leads me to believe that this, and it's in July 31st of 95. So that leads me to believe that this must be the home in Michigan. But anyways, JonBenet had just got done going to the doctor for abdominal pain and fever related to an infection in her body. And she's off in the summer, which I expect her to be. She's off and away in the summer like it's nothing. What? I am confused. Because it makes me wonder, was JonBenet ever really healthy? Or was she having to carry on? Now, I understand that she's smiling, she's happy, what have you. Because that's just how she deals with things. Because I don't think she understands that she's not supposed to be this sick. She should not be having this level of issues left and right. Her body is being beat up, which is the same way that it was when she died. They were talking about the marks, like the marks right here from her fingernails. I don't think this girl lived a good life at all. I'm not going to lie to you. In my personal opinion, the more I dig into this stuff, it doesn't seem like JonBenet lived a good life. She lived in a nice house. She went to a good school. But I don't know. She had loving parents. But I don't know if the proper time to take care of her was dedicated to her. That's my only problem. And so from there, it seems to sort of shade toward a form of neglect. We asked the question, was JonBenet Ramsey neglected in a way? Can you call all of these infections an indication of neglect? Question mark. Because for her to have, man, come on, man. Dealing with this kind of pain in her stomach. She's trying to end the school year in March. She's getting close to May, trying to end the school year. And she gets pulled out of school for this. To go to the doctor and maybe not even pulled. And sometimes JonBenet went through some stuff, man. That's what I'm going to tell you. Sometimes JonBenet went through some stuff at nighttime. I don't see it in my notes here, and I don't think it's in my other notes, but I was reading through the interview transcripts, and man, it's like one time, I think Tom Haney had asked Patsy, he said, hey, you know, it looks like you called Dr. Buff at nighttime. You know, I think you called him, I think it was 6:23 p.m. And then she came back and called him at like 6:53. And then she came back and called him at 6:59. And as we said before, Dr. Buff would give out his number to his clients so that they could reach him at any time. And Patsy was using the number to call. At 6:59, 7 o'clock at night. The workday is over. The man should be enjoying his family. Instead, Patsy Ramsey's blowing up his phone 3 times because something is going on with JonBenet. I can't remember what, but something was going on with JonBenet. Man, this is tough. Oh my goodness. I'm going to move on. August of 1996. Another routine physical exam of a private area. The doctor says everything checked out as normal. We asked what he made of this number of complaints. Would that be unusual? And again, he goes back to saying for a child that age, certainly not. Okay. So what's the problem, Doc? Why this many issues? And his response is, well, for a child this age, certainly not. In 1996, August of 96, JonBenet is 5 years old. For a child this age, certainly not. They don't wipe themselves very well after they urinate. And it's something which usually is curable by having them take plain water baths or learning to wipe better. But if you have a 4-year-old kid, no, Doc, this is 1996, brother. 1996. She's still struggling with, we were struggling with her wiping in 1995. Now you're telling me we're still struggling with wiping in 1996. March of 1995, she was having some issues. And now, a year and some change later, she's still having a problem wiping herself. What is going on? You guys are wealthy. You have money. I don't understand. You can get the best of the best training to somebody to come personally work with JonBenet. You can pay them to go to school and stay beside and work with JonBenet or what have you to continue to stay on JonBenet to help her get better. You can have an in-home nurse. Why does she not have that? Because this seems like it needs to be paid attention to. And you're saying, I mean, all we need to do is take care of her by plain water baths. Are you giving her baths? Is she taking a bath? Because even if she uses the restroom on herself, guys, I'm going to leave that for the next episode. JonBenet, I'll just say this. JonBenet was she was, I don't want to say complaining, but she was in this situation with bedwetting so much. It was normal. You hear me? It was normal. John said at the top of this podcast, he didn't know it was an issue. You didn't know it was an issue. Your daughter's using the restroom on herself all the time. All the time. She's been doing it for 3 years at least, and you said you don't know it's an issue. What are you talking about? The beds smell like urine. What are you, your wife, according to her, she's just grabbing the sheets and putting them in the washer and dryer, which makes sense because they have a washer and dryer right beside JonBenet's room, in between Melinda and JonBenet's room. The washer and dryer. So JonBenet's room is right here. We're on the second floor. Here's Melinda's room. The washer and dryer. You come out of JonBenet's room. Boop. Right there. Washer and dryer. That was a normal occurrence. Normal occurrence. I am so sick to my stomach. I'm telling you right now. I'm sick to my stomach. If this is something that could be cleared up with water baths, plain water, we don't even need soap. You could take a wash rag and do what my mom used to call a wipe off. And are you JonBenet, I'm stuck because this is a known issue with JonBenet, right? You're a mom. You're there with JonBenet every night. This is a known issue with JonBenet. Are you indicating to me that not one time out of the day, knowing that JonBenet is using the restroom on herself all the time? Because this has to fester. It has to sit there and I want to use the word germinate. This is disgusting. It has to sit there and germinate. Meaning, and I'm using germinate to mean it has to grow. It has to have time to, oh, this is disgusting. It has to have time to become a problem. It's not a problem. If one time a day before JonBenet goes to bed, you say, okay, come on, babe, it's time to wipe you down. Make sure we got you in some clean clothes. It's time to wipe you down. JonBenet, I'll just tell you this. JonBenet was wearing pull-ups. And it wasn't just JonBenet. There were times that Burke was wearing pull-ups. My God. JonBenet was wearing pull-ups. Those are supposed to catch the urine. But if she's getting infections, how long is she wearing that pull-up? Oh my God. Because all it takes is a plain water bath to clean her up and this problem goes away. But the problem didn't go away, it stayed. But if you have a 4-year-old kid, you know how hard that is to give her a plain water bath or a wipe off? The freak are you talking about? The amount of vaginitis which I saw on the child was totally consistent with little girls her age. I'm not a little girl. So I have no clue about the normality or normalcy. I would say normality of this. It's the second indication of explaining away, Doc, there is a problem. It's a problem, Doc. This is not, I understand. Okay, let me give it to you. I understand you might say, hey, this is totally consistent with little girls. Yeah. But this is not the only thing that she's dealing with, Doc. She's dealing with this, the amount of vaginitis. This is not the only thing she's dealing with. She's dealing with strep throat and sinus infections. Talk to me. Talk to me. What? I saw it's consistent. Yeah, but are the other medical issues also consistent in combination? Because JonBenet is a sickly child. Diane Sawyer says, if there had been an abrasion involving the hymen, would you have seen it? He says, probably. I can't say for sure because you don't have a spectrum. You don't do a speculum exam on a child that young, at least unless it's under anesthesia. Did you see any, in any of these examinations, any sign of possible abuse to the private area? No. And I certainly would have reported it to the social services people if I had. That's something that all of us in pediatrics are very acutely aware of. She goes on to say, and some other notes Dr. Beuf says, he last saw JonBenet Ramsey in November of 96, and that was a checkup for a sinus infection. A couple of other things Dr. Beuf says, he has turned in people he has suspected of physical and other, private area abuse in his career, and that he not only looks for physical evidence, but personality changes in the children involved. And he says he saw none of that with JonBenet Ramsey. And Primetime consulted with other pediatric experts about JonBenet's records, and they agree with Dr. Beuf's analysis that there was nothing unusual there for a girl her age. When we come back, we'll take a look at the Ramsey home. There were no behavioral changes. What, March? April, May, June, July, 4 months later, she's smiling. She's probably having more bedwetting issues and she's smiling. The girl doesn't know that it's not normal. She's 6. Do you know a baby will run around in a dirty diaper filled with poop and will be none the wiser? If JonBenet consistently has been doing this since she was a child, do you think that she would know that this is any different than other times? Do you think that she wouldn't think that this is normal? She would think this is normal. I always run around in my underwear after using the restroom. And if you continue to put her in a pull-up, then guess what? She's like, well, I mean, this is what I do. I use the restroom whenever I need to go. But she's 6. So she's using, there's more coming out. So the pull-up probably gets full faster. And so that's where the rash comes from. This is, dare I say, equivalent to JonBenet literally sitting in a pool of her own urine. I'm sorry to say it like this. Please, I'm sorry to say it like that. But that's dang near what it's like. sitting in a pool of her own urine. That makes me sick to my stomach. This girl did not deserve that at all. August of 1996, I have in my notes. August of 1996 exam showed no issues. Things just seemed to magically stop several months before JonBenet died. The doctor said that this was not unusual for her age. And I guess my question became, how many kids are assaulted at that age? Because this kind of might affect the baseline when we say, oh, this is unusual behavior. This is not unusual behavior. I mean, we got to establish a baseline for this age. Anyways, John Ramsey says bedwetting wasn't an issue in the 1998 interview, but he admits to having plastic on the bed, on JonBenet's bed, and saying JonBenet wasn't fully potty trained. Clearly, at this point, he says, well, and as he said in the one interview, he was like, oh, I didn't know she had any problem. Clearly, you're aware that she has an issue, then you're letting on. And people sometimes say, leave these people alone, blah, 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 blah. This, and I want to, I really do. But when you have stuff like this going on, it's like, wait. What is going on with your daughter, bro? Why is she, why are there infections all the time? Man, the stuff that JonBenet was going through, man. 1998 interview, Patsy said JonBenet was learning at the age of 6 to wipe herself. My question is this normal? Is this typical of potty training and wiping during this time period? Should you already know this? Maybe I'm tripping. Like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am. Maybe this is normal. Maybe it is. But this is wild, man. Dr. Beuf confirms JonBenet had problems with wiping at the age of 4. So we know she had problems. And last but not least, the checkup for the sinus infection in November of 1996, just before she died a month later. So for a long time, up until the point when she died, JonBenet was dealing with a lot of sickness. Dealing with a lot of sickness. It's extremely painful because and I found myself kind of taking on sort of this advocacy because people say, these parents have Mike Bynum was like, he said in on JonBenet's America, shot by Michael Tracy, Colorado, professor in the fine arts department, I think, or something like that. But Michael Tracy, and I could have that wrong, but he's at Colorado. He was at Colorado. But he said when they were fighting over getting JonBenet back, he said, look, we don't know if getting her body back to go get buried. He said one thing that we don't know is who did this. All we know is, you know, the way these parents are being treated, that shouldn't be the case. I push back and I say, I don't give a crap about the parents. I'm sorry for your loss of your daughter. But what about JonBenet? That's my question. I'm sorry for your loss, but what about your daughter? I hope you find peace. I honestly do. And I'm happy that you have found peace and joy on the other side of suffering. I'm happy. I truly am. I have nothing against you people. I think that John and Patsy stoned me for this, but I think John and Patsy Ramsey were the nicest people in the world prior to this. Now, shady? Maybe. But wouldn't harm a fly. Wouldn't hurt a thing. I don't think. But after your daughter dies, all I hear about is you. What about this little girl? What about JonBenet? Because we still have a crime to solve. And you up and taking the body to Georgia and bogarting your way in didn't make it any better. Mike Bynum was like, man, you know, so this is the way he describes the story. He said, you know, when they were looking at the body, like 2 days later, when they were looking at the body of JonBenet, they called and said, hey, before you guys go out of town, and this is when the police were supposedly hostile. They said, before you guys go out of town, can we have you guys come in? You, Patsy, John, Patsy, Burke, can we have you guys come in? Take the, you know, can we talk to you? Ask you some questions about the body. And you know, the response from the Ramseys was, well, we're going to take the body, you know, we're going to take the body out of town to go get buried. Yeah, what I'm asking you is, can you come in to answer questions about the body? I'm not asking you to take the body. I'm asking if you can come in. The assistant district attorney called them in and said, hey, can you guys come in and give samples? You know, hair and blood samples. And so when they came in, according to what Mike Bynum is saying, when they came in, they felt ambushed because the assistant DA was like, hey, well, we got a problem. They don't want to release the body until you guys answer some questions. Would you guys be willing to do some interviews? And that's when John said, oh, you know, the worm has turned, you know, now it's getting hostile. How? Because we're asking you to answer questions about your daughter's body? Man, man, come on. You got something up. Something is up with you. That's weird. Something has happened to your daughter's body, and I'm saying, hey, can you answer questions about your daughter's body? Can her brother, can your wife answer questions about your daughter? And you said no. They went and called the DA. Said, DA, this is immoral and unethical. Give me the body. But wait, that body was a part of a search warrant. Understand me? That body was a part of a search warrant, and they did not have to. The police had the legal right, as I understand it, the police had the legal right to hold on to that body as long as they wanted to. It wasn't a hostile environment. They were legally able to retain that body as long as they wanted to, because it's now part of evidence. They got a search warrant for it. The judge signed off. Judge McDonald signed off on it. The only way that the body can be released, as I understand it, is the DA can overrule and say release it. Y'all released everything else, the police reports and the copies of the ransom note and copies of evidence and such. Police bungling, huh? Who released the body? Because the cops, we know the cops didn't release the body. We know the cops didn't release the body. Cops wanted the body. Who released the body? Who released it? I could go on and go. You know me. I could go on and on. I am flabbergasted. I am just flabbergasted at this idea that you came in that police station and bogarted your way. You called the DA knowing that they had questions. You knew. They told you, we have questions for you on this body. And you said, no, I'm about to go to Atlanta. You already starting to put your stuff in storage. Y'all are already moving to Atlanta. The first thing, within 8 months, that house was cleaned out. You guys were already moving, and not moving to another place in Colorado. You were moving to Atlanta. Huh? Why are you moving to Atlanta? Come on, talk to me. You had already decided to move to Atlanta. You had already decided to get out of town and be as far away from the Boulder Police Department. Who does that? Who does that? Your daughter died in Colorado and you move to another state where the cops have to come chase you down to Atlanta? Huh? Don't you want to be close to the investigation? It would seem that if you move in another state that you won't have access, because a lot of times what you want to do is you want to be in person to make sure things are moving along with the case. You want to be in person. Why did John and Patsy move to another state to where they couldn't be in person? And they screwed up their relationship with everybody who still lived in Colorado, who could have said, hey, we're staying on the case for you. You screwed those relationships up. And the only person you still had a relationship with moved to Atlanta with you. Were you really trying to stay close to the case? I'm confused, because you wouldn't have moved to Atlanta. That doesn't make sense. And you wouldn't have taken the body so soon. And I was wondering, I was like, man, how long can they keep the body? Quite long, apparently. For quite some time. There was so much weird stuff going on with JonBenet. I'm telling you, it's so weird. Next episode. Once again, thank you to all of the donors. Thank you to all of the donors. Much love. You know, I gotta bring them up, because that was crazy. Much love once again to all of the donors. Granny Rose coming through in a big way. Eva West coming through crazy. What? That's like $40. Come on. And then Marsha Pop coming through with the $5. $4. I'm sorry. I rounded up to $5. Thank you for all of those who liked this. Really appreciate it. Let me know what you think. Like, share, subscribe. Give me your theories and your opinions. And until next time, take it easy.